Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, today, the 11th, has been a very uneventful day just across the NFL. It really just goes in line with what I've been saying. There's just not very many good players out there. Almost everybody has just re-signed with their teams, and you know, I took some notes on people that went places, and it's almost nobody is worth even talking about. I mean, Miles Sanders, Laken Tomlinson, Will Harris, Mario Edwards, MJ Stewart. Leonard Floyd became available for about an hour, and then he immediately got signed. Zay Jones, Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, Cavante Turpin, Russell Wilson, Curtis Robinson, Patrick Ricard, Darrington Evans, Anthony Nelson, Jawan Johnson, Jeremy Nichols. I mean, stop me when you hear somebody that's like, dang, that's amazing. Drake Stoops, good old Drake Stoops. There you go. Mike Brown, you know, good old Mike Brown. He's with the Titans now. Wesley French. Boy, oh boy, how I've dreamed of the days of getting Wesley French. Peyton Turner. Couldn't tell you one thing about Peyton Turner. Luke Gifford is now with the 49ers. Justin Reed signed with the Saints. Reed might be a decent player, but he's a safety that we don't need, and you know, maybe. Sam Martin. Robert Tonyan got signed by the Chiefs, so making splashes out here. Jacoby Brissett to the Cardinals. Dang, Super Bowl caliber now. Titans signed Johnny Hekker. Texans signed Nick Neiman. Nick Westbrook is now signing with the Miami Dolphins. He had his best year ever last year of his 5-year career with 497 yards. Ashton Davis is now with the Dolphins. The Rams signed Coleman Shelton. The Ravens released cornerback Arthur Maulet, if you guys want to jump on that one. He played 72 snaps last year and had a 45 grade. Played for 4 different teams. Has never spent more than 2 years on a team. But, you know, if you need a corner, it's a thing. DeAndre Hopkins, who was elite probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, signed with Baltimore. Safety Xavier Woods is with Tennessee. Eric Stokes got a job with the Raiders. It's a 1-year, $4 million deal. So we exchanged DBs, and it's kind of crazy to think how much better of a deal we got than them, despite us not even getting a super premier player, but, you know, I'll take that trade-off any day of the week. Safety Marcus Williams is now available, if anybody's interested in getting another safety who was injured last year. He was really good a long time ago. Real solid for the Saints, and then okay for Baltimore until this past year when he got hurt, and now they don't want him. But, you know, if you want to get another safety for some reason, there's that. 49ers signed Jason Pinnock, however you want to say it. And then the Broncos signed wide receiver Trent Sherfield. I mean, literally zero of these going, man, that would have been cool. I mean, honestly, the absolute best player I think that the Packers could have signed but went somewhere else is DeAndre Hopkins, and I really don't want him. You may have also noticed that I didn't mention the Packers once, so even amidst a flurry of just the most boring, stupid bullcrap in the world, the Packers didn't participate, which I don't know if that makes me happy or sad. I don't know. It's probably a good thing. I'm seeing Bears fans, for example, doing backflips about just signing absolute garbage because they did something. And then they go find somebody that tells them that this is the greatest signing of all time, that these offensive linemen are premier players, and that Grady Jarrett is still a really good defensive tackle, and then they get all excited about it, and then they laugh at the Packers because they haven't done anything. It's such a stupid thing. I mean, listen, it's an unfortunate free agency period. This is usually a very exciting time. Kind of knew coming into it that there was just not a lot going on. I was kind of hopeful that some of these guys would not re-sign with their teams. Maybe there would be some cool trades, but really at this point, Trey Hendrickson is the only guy left, and I really anticipate him going back to the Bengals. We shall see. If they pull that off, how many really big moves have there actually been? That might be the one. You know what I mean? And again, even if he does get traded, There's 32 teams competing for that guy, including the Bengals. So the odds are not in our favor. I would hope that the Packers do everything they can. They have more than enough money, but everybody right now has more than enough money. Everybody is rich, and nobody is spending their money because there's nobody to spend money on. I mean, not literally everybody. Some teams are so completely broke, like the Saints, who have been broke for like a decade now, don't exactly have money. But a lot of teams are just flush with cash and can't find a way to spend it. I mean, I don't know officially where we're at, but as far as I can tell right now, the Packers still have like $37 million in cap space. We'll go over the contracts as best as I can determine here. I don't think we have details on our new offensive guard yet. That'll end up bringing the number down a little bit, but really not very much at all, because we're obviously not going to be paying anywhere near the APY. We know that. But I think maybe the more interesting thing, assuming that no Trey Hendrickson trade happens or whatever, the most interesting thing is going to be, what do the Packers and other teams do with all the extra money? This might just be a very big rollover year, which could end up benefiting them for next year. If they're able to roll over, $25-30 million to next year's salary cap and apply that to next year's free agency, I mean, maybe that's just the best option. As much as that kind of sucks, it might just be. I don't know what to do. I wish I had a solution. A lot of people on social media are angry right now. Why can't you do anything? We need to do something. I get that. I've been with you every step of the way saying the Packers need premier players. Tell me what you'd like to do about that problem. I'm hearing the complaints. I'm hearing the problem. I get that you've identified the problem. We all have. Gutekunst has. We all get it. What do you want to do about it? There's nobody out there to get. There's nobody. I was all in on DJ Reed. I wish we'd have got him. Whether the Packers tried, how hard they tried, whatever, I don't know. Maybe they tried and he'd rather go to Detroit because he wanted to go to a winning team. Maybe Detroit offered a little more. Maybe the Packers didn't try at all. I have no idea. And if they didn't, why didn't they? Seemed like a good scheme fit. Seemed like the prototype of a Packer. He's a young guy. Doesn't seem to have injury issues. He's very consistent. He's a good fit for the scheme. At least that's what I've been told. An old Saleh guy, which makes sense. It seemed to fit, so I have to assume they tried, and why they didn't end up getting him, I don't know the answer to that. But again, getting me to throw a fit as though there's two teams and we either get him or we don't is nonsense. If you're one of 32 teams, and let's just assume, depending on the player, I don't know, 25-30% of the teams are going after them, the odds are not in your favor. And when there's 3, 4, 5 guys that are worthwhile, like, period, the odds are just not in your favor. So, and everybody's flush with cash. Everybody has options, and DK, I don't know that was a good thing. And it sounds like they didn't try. Why? Well, maybe 5 years, $150 million, plus Seattle's ridiculous asking price, plus the fact that he's the most penalized guy in the NFL and a penalized wide receiver because he's a little bit of a head case. Maybe that all just added up to being a little bit much. And Devontae Adams, as soon as the Rams offered them that job, it was over. There was never an opportunity for him to come here. He wanted to go. I'm guessing there's no team he'd rather go to. He wanted to go to the West Coast. What team would be better than the Rams? 0 teams. Maybe the 49ers, but that's kind of iffy at this point. Wanted Max Crosby, he agreed to a deal with his team. Wanted Myles Garrett, he agreed to go back to his team. I don't know. I mean, if I'm the Packers, I'm just putting all my eggs in the Trey Hendrickson basket, and that's it. And, am I willing to overpay at this point? Yeah. But also, I think we got to be honest and just say this was a weak class. We got some weak prospects to help us hopefully just set a little bit of a higher floor. And that's about it. Joey Bosa is going to the Buffalo Bills, 1 year, $12.6 million contract. And again, a lot of people, there's two ways to look at this. Most people look at that and go, oh, that's so cheap, I can't believe we didn't do it. My mind goes to, that really shows how bad this is. This guy, when he's healthy, is one of the absolute best pass rushers in all of football, and he got 12.6 on a 1 year deal, and that's the best he could get. It tells you everything you need to know. So, look, I want to go through the top available free agents. What that even means, I'm not sure anymore. But that's what I want to do. Why don't we take it to the other side of the break? We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So all of the Tier 1 players are gone. It looks like they changed this a lot. I told you who the Tier 1 players were, and there were 4 of them. And now there's just 3, and I think they moved Josh Sweat up. I don't think he was in Tier 1 before. Maybe they re-signed with their team before free agency. I don't know. But Milton Williams to the Patriots, Chris Godwin to the Buccaneers, Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. Let me real quick elaborate on something too here, because I got into an argument with somebody about this situation. I've been making the case, and it seems to be falling on deaf ears a little bit, so let me just clarify a little bit, and if you still don't like it, then you can leave it. The idea that we don't have very good players is found in the contracts that they get. And I had somebody tell me, well, yeah, I mean, Josh Sweat is, he got $76 million over 3 years, which puts him in the top 10, which it actually doesn't, because some of the people that are outside of that range, outside of the top 10, got paid years ago when the salary cap was lower. So as a percentage, no, Josh Sweat is not in the top 10. Neither is Paulson Adebo, neither is anybody else. So let's look at the number 1 prospect here, supposedly, which was Milton Williams, right? 4 years, $104 million. The top defensive tackle contract as a percentage is Chris Jones, who signed in 2024. Christian Wilkins last year signed a contract with Las Vegas as a free agent. He got 10.77% of the team's salary cap. Christian Wilkins, who is not even that good of a defensive tackle, in today's dollars is $30 million. $30 million. I'm not even doing Chris Jones, who got 12.43%, because that's, kind of crazy high. But let's just call $30 million the top. Milton Williams, maybe the best free agent in the class, got $24 million. That's 8.59%. That puts him 13th. Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Daron Payne, Dexter Lawrence, Vita Vea, Nnamdi Madubuike, Alim McNeil, Derek Brown, Javon Hargrave, DeForest Buckner, all of them got higher contracts than the top free agent in this class. So what does that tell you about this class? The top free agent wide receiver got a 3-year, $66 million deal. That's $22 million a year for Chris Godwin. Justin Jefferson right now is the highest paid. He got paid last year 13.7% of the cap. In today's dollars, that's $38 million. Chris Godwin got 22. Do you understand what I'm telling you right now? The highest actually this year was DK Metcalf. That was not a part of the free agency thing. It was a trade. But even DK Metcalf's really big contract ranks 5th. And that was $30 million. Chris Godwin got 22. The third highest, Josh Sweat. If he were to get top of market today, based on what the highest percentage is in today's dollars, it would be almost $43 million. Max Crosby, as you know, got a massive contract. Even Max Crosby ranks 4th behind Watt, Bosa, and Garrett. But remember, Myles Garrett, even though as a percentage it's not as high as TJ Watt or Nick Bosa, it's $40 million. What did Josh Sweat get? He got 25. 25. That's trash. In fact, it's not even that high compared to a bunch of guys from this year. Myles Garrett and Max Crosby were the two big ones, obviously. That's actual top-of-market money. Milton Williams got 9.3%. Gregory Rousseau got 7.16%. Josh Sweat, 6.84%. Not even close. It's not even 50% of what top money is. Where did it go? 6.84%. By the way, Bradley Chubb, 6.5. Khalil Mack, 6.4. Chase Young, 6. Deo Odenigbo for Chicago got 5.73. Harold Landry, 5.19. Hassan Reddick, 5%. 15% is the tippy top. 15.34 is the highest as a percentage. So, there are no premier players. Myles Garrett and Max Crosby would fit in that premier player category. I don't know exactly where the cutoff is. Maybe it's 10%. I don't know. That's what Rashawn got, was 10%. Crosby, 12.7. Garrett, 14.3. So just to be very clear, these guys are not even getting top 10 money. The top paid corner this year was J.C. Horn. He stayed in Carolina. Charvarius Ward was the next highest. He ranks 13th. Murphy and Carlton and Adebo are all at 15th. They're all tied with each other. These are not premier players. That's why they're not getting paid like premier players. There are no top 5 contracts. I'm not even finding any top 10 contracts aside from guys who stayed with their team. Khalil Mack got 1 year, $18 million, compared to 40 at the top end. He didn't even get 20. Again, you can argue and say, well, that would have been worth it for the Packers. I agree. I would have done that. It's not the point, though. The point is we're mad because we visualized Khalil Mack as like at least a $30 million guy, and he got away from us for $18 million. No, he's an $18 million guy that went to somewhere else for $18 million, or stayed with his team for $18 million. That's the issue. All right. So the top 10 are gone on this list. This is The Athletic who put this list together. It's not a exact science, but they're top people. Remaining on their list at 11, Javon Hargrave. He actually did get signed by Minnesota, so they're lacking a little bit here. Hargrave is a decent guy, but he's 32 and has been, what did he play, 3 games last year? So, if he can bounce back and maybe give you one more good year, he can be a real solid pass rusher for sure. Just obviously some questions on that. Stephon Diggs is the next guy available that I don't believe has actually found a home yet at wide receiver. Considering the reports that the Packers didn't even try to get DK Metcalf, which I don't know if that's true or not. There's been conflicting reports, obviously. I find it really hard to believe that they would go after Stephon Diggs. Diggs is 31 years old. He played, 8 games last year? The year before that he was healthy. He had 1,200 yards. He's had over 1,000 yards every year since 2017, except for this past year where he got hurt. He grades out well. He's a good receiver. But the odds that the Packers take on an injured 31-year-old head case, I have to assume are exceedingly small. Then you got a bunch of people that have been taken all the way through the rest of their Tier 2 players on to Tier 3. You have at the top there at number 22, Zadarius Smith. There's no chance we're bringing him back. At 23 is Aaron Rodgers. Obviously is not going to be a thing that we do. Mekhi Becton, the guard. We've already done the guard thing, so that's not going to happen. At 27 is DeMarcus Lawrence. Already talked about him. He's going to be 33 years old. Played 4 games last year due to injury. The year before that, though, he graded out as elite. He did have a more than 10% pressure rate and is an elite run blocker. The sacks were not there, though. He only had 4 sacks, and it looks like he may have missed a little bit of time. Maybe they just put him on a little bit of a snap count. His snaps were down a little bit, but not a ton, I guess. I know there's a desire to just do something, and we can certainly use our imagination to see why this could end up being great. DeMarcus Lawrence has historically been a great player. This is what, again, like Bears fans do with Grady Jarrett and whatnot. I get that. So, it's kind of a desperation play. If you do it, you probably put him on a pretty heavy rotation, a snap count. Try to keep him healthy, try to keep him fresh, and just bring him in, hopefully for real cheap. It probably would be cheap. So I'm not going to say I'm opposed to it, but it's going to be like everything else. If the Packers were to do it, it's not some big slam dunk thing. It's you're bringing the guy in on a wheelchair and putting him on a snap count and pumping him full of meds and hoping that he can try to keep his body healthy and, keep everybody else fresh. But that's about it, man. Tevin Jenkins is at 33. Talked about him. I like Tevin Jenkins, but he's very broke down. And again, we've already done the guard thing. They decided to go in a different direction other than Tevin Jenkins. And at 35 is Rasul Douglas, who I don't think has much left to offer. That's it for Tier 3. So now we come down to Tier 4. Keenan Allen, again, went to the Bears for a year, really was terrible. We could say that it was because of the Bears and because they suck and their quarterback sucked and their coach sucked and everything else. Maybe. It was also not great as far as his attitude on the field and his production on the field. And again, everybody looking at him saying, bro, that dude looks fat. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with old Keenan over there. But, again, what really is the benefit? I don't know. At 38 is J.K. Dobbins, who's a running back we don't need. 41 is Levi Onwuzurike, who is a defensive tackle. He's only 27 years old. Unfortunately, he's not super good. He kind of just fits in with the rest of the defensive tackles we have, so it would be kind of a depth thing. He did have above a 10% pressure rate, which is good compared to the guys that we had, but only 3 sacks. He only has 5 sacks in his 3-year career. So, yeah, it's not great. Amari Cooper, I had said before, kind of put him into the Devontae Adams category of, clearly not in his prime anymore. I don't know what he has left, but maybe he could do something cool. He had last year a 69 PFF grade, 69 receiving grade, 588 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, I don't know what exactly you're getting out of that. Asante Samuel at corner. Again, we kind of already addressed that to the best of seemingly their ability. I would not be super interested in Asante Samuel at this point. Tight end Evan Ingram and safety Marcus Williams. Brandon Scherf is a guard, which we already did. Tyler Lockett I don't want at wide receiver, and that's it for tier 4. Another guard, Von Miller, who is, I think, just cooked at this point. Calais Campbell at defensive tackle. Campbell obviously is an absolute freak. The problem is he's going to be 39 years old this year. He's still like a dominant run defender. He had an 86 run defense grade this past year. And unfortunately, the pass rush really is not very good. He hasn't been like comfortably above 10% since 2019 when he was with Jacksonville. And since then, it's below 10% to right at about 10%, depending on the year. This past year was just below 10% and 5 sacks. So, again, would it be the worst thing in the world for just a handful of bucks to bring in Calais Campbell? You got the veteran thing and kind of bolster the run defense. You put him on a snap count because you don't need him out there a ton. Whatever. But are the Packers going to bring in a 39-year-old at the very back end of his career? I really doubt it. Cornerback Darius Slay, they're unlikely to go after. Tyron Smith, the tackle, they're unlikely to go after. Eric Hendricks, a linebacker, I would kind of doubt, unless they're looking for maybe a little bit more depth. Tier 6, there's Justin Simmons, a safety. Elijah Moore, a wide receiver. Elijah Moore had a 59 PFF receiving grade, which is pretty standard for him. 538 yards and 1 touchdown. I see no reason to bring him in. At 71, Cam Robinson tackle, Josh Myers center, Rico Dowdle running back, Tyler Conklin tight end, Will Hernandez guard, Azeez Ojulari is all the way down at 82. He's only 24 going on 25, which is great until you realize a 25-year-old, 24-year-old can't find a job. He did have 22 pressures and 7 sacks on 196 attempts in like 2/3 of a season, which is not terrible, but in general, he's not a very good pass rusher. He's a terrible run defender. There's just not a lot going for him, which is why he can't seem to find a home. On top of that, at 240 pounds, most teams are not going to be interested in him, especially coming off an injury. He is an outside linebacker, so I don't really see a whole lot there. Draymond Jones is an outside linebacker. I thought he was a defensive tackle at one point. I don't know. He's 6'3", 281, but I guess he's been playing on the edge. Must have got moved at some point. He had one good year back in 2020 with Denver. And by good year, I mean 30 pressures on 360 attempts, which is kind of garbage. This past year, 54 grade, 45 run defense, 66 pass rush. Did have 45 pressures on 375 attempts, but just 3 sacks. So just not a ton to get excited about, especially with sort of a tweener position guy. Again, if they did it, it's like, okay, but I don't think so. Cornerback, linebacker, and then Malik Collins at defensive tackle is at 87. He's the last one in, tier 6 or whatever we're in right now. Malik Collins, defensive tackle for San Francisco. He played for Dallas, then Las Vegas, then Houston, then San Francisco. He's 30 years old. He's never graded out well, ever. His best year was in 2022 with Houston, 65 overall, 54 run defense, 76 pass rush, although the stats are not all that great. This past year, 45 pressures on 435 attempts and 6 sacks. You know, it's whatever. He grades out decently as a pass rusher, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. It just feels like we have these guys. You know what I mean? Like, you could probably get them at 10% pressure rate, not a ton of sacks, and they can't stop the run. I mean, if you want to add another one, okay. Tier 7, linebacker Jerome Baker, tackle Jedrick Wills, cornerback Akello Witherspoon. At number 96 is Dante Fowler, the pass rusher. He's going to be 31 this year, 261 pounds at 6'3". He was a number 3 overall pick, but was a massive swing and a miss by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Never really materialized. He only had 3 years of 10-plus sacks. One of them was this past year. The pressure rates are actually not terrible. So, I mean, if you wanted to do it, if you felt like he could, come in and 50 pressures on 387 attempts, I mean, what is that? 50 divided by 387, it's 13%. And maybe you can get 10 sacks, but the previous years were 5, 6, 5, and 4. So probably if you had to guess, it would not be a 10-sack season. The other part of the reason why he doesn't get 10 sacks in a season is because of a very low usage amount, whether that's due to injuries or not. 2023, I assumed he was injured, and really they just didn't play him. He only had 275 snaps. I don't think he missed a single game. So, I mean, to be a starter that was a number 3 overall pick, to be a rotational guy that didn't start a single game is not great. 2024, he started a little less than half this, about half, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He started 9 games. It includes playoffs, though, 2 playoff games. So, I don't know. It's if you do it, fine. If you don't, I don't care. K'Lavon Chaisson was another guy that was kind of a big swing and a miss. I think he fell farther than, his initial height, but he was still a number 20 overall selection. Never really been good at football. Never even hit, one time he hit 10% in 2021. He had 1 sack that year. He has 11 total sacks in 5 years. I don't think he's ever really been a full-time starter for an entire season ever in his time in the NFL. So there's really nothing to get excited about there. Benjamin St. Juste is a bad corner. And then you got Tier 8 where you got a bunch of guys that are available. So everybody through Tier 7 has mostly been picked up. Tier 8 is where everybody's available, but nobody's very good. At the top, 109, Josh Uche is a pass rusher. He spent most of his time in New England and then just a handful of games in Kansas City. He ended up with 1 total pressure his entire time in Kansas City. 40 attempts, 1 pressure, 0 sacks. So that's not very good. He did show some ability in the past. I'm not sure why it's so up and down with him. 2022 was actually a very good year. He had almost 90 pass rush grade, 56 pressures on 285 attempts, which is like a half a season's worth, and 12 sacks, which is just wild. But he's just not playing. I don't know. Let me check to see if he's injured or what. But no, he just didn't start in 2023 and 2022. Again, he was there most of the season and was just a part-time rotational guy. So second-round pick out of Michigan that just can't get on the field as a starter. I'm guessing he's just a pure pass rusher for most teams. And that's probably why his stats are as high as they are, because they put him in purely pass rush situations and try to find ways to get him to the quarterback, would be my guess. Linebacker E.J. Speed, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Matt Judon. I mean, look, we don't have to go through all of these, but it's just not great. It's funny, number 150, the absolute bottom is Eric Stokes, who went to the Raiders. Bottom line is, the Packers could absolutely do something. There's a billion players here. Some of these guys are probably just going to go without a job. Everybody's been talking about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's here at 135. Stephon Gilmore, 132. Plenty of options. I just don't know, especially for the Packers, because, again, we have plenty of just guys. Other teams, you might need that. And the other thing to keep in mind, as I said, is the Packers didn't lose a lot of people in free agency. A lot of other teams did. And so you lose people, you got to replenish them. And that's what a lot of this is. We lose a lot of people. We don't have bodies, so we got to go out and get bodies. Packers didn't really lose anybody. They had to replace Josh Myers as one of the only starters, and then replace Eric Stokes, who was kind of a starter / Jair, although he didn't really play much last year. But those are the only two kind of starter people that left, and they went out and found some bodies to replace it. Did they get anyone that could actually come in and be that premier player? No. But how many of those are actually available? Very few, if any. And they're all gone now. All right, well, why don't we take our final break? We'll come back, and I want to poke around at some NFL draft stuff, because we haven't done that in a little bit of a while, and I think we need to take a hard left turn toward the NFL draft, because that is our salvation at this point. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, real quick, why don't we head over to our little tracker here. Compliments of, what is his name again? Ethan Butler? Or I can't remember. I forget his name. We'll catch it next time. Easton Butler. There it is. Couple of names. Again, a couple of these are obviously, they've been done in the past, but we're just finding out about it, so I will mention it. Jalen Royals, wide receiver out of Utah State. Packers met with him at the NFL Combine. Looks like this was a formal visit. Pro Day visits, they met with Joshua Carter, who's a running back out of Eastern Kentucky, and Bo Spearman, a linebacker out of Austin Peay. First of all, I just kind of want to poke through the consensus big board just to kind of show where people are at right now, as everybody's kind of moved a little bit. First of all, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle, is still sitting at 5. Despite the talk about him possibly slipping a little bit. McMillan still at 7. Will Johnson, cornerback, is now at 10. It's not impossible he could continue to slide for in the direction of the Packers. I think the biggest thing for us, though, is going to be the edge rushers. And as I've said, as I go through this, they start around 10 and then go until around where the Packers are when things start to fall off. Whether or not they fall, I don't know. I at this point, I would not be surprised if it's in the Packers' plan to try to move up and grab one. It might not even be that hard based on what we talked about before with teams being more interested in trading back than trading up. And like I said, the only instance of that happening is where one team is kind of in desperate need of a position that another team is not, and they're trying to double up in the second or third round or something. Might give the Packers some kind of an opportunity depending on what team we're talking about. But Jalen Walker's at 12, Shamar Stewart at 13, Mykel Williams is at 15, Mike Green at 16, James Pierce at 17. So they're all just bunched up right there. Then you got the defensive tackles. Kenneth Green is up to 20. Walter Nolan is sitting right at 22. That's right in our range. I don't know if they're going to be as appealing as the edge rushers when your sole goal is getting to the quarterback. Not that they can't do it, but I think they're a little bit more versatile in terms of what all they're doing as opposed to just being these demons that get after quarterbacks. Derek Harmon is still sitting at 30. Donovan Iziruaku is at 34. Nick Scorton is down to 35 now. And then the corners, Siobhan Revel is all the way down to 38. He continues to plummet. He's actually just ahead of Maxwell Hairston, who has actually overtaken Benjamin Morrison, who's dropped to 40. So the corners are just plummeting right now. I guess the good news here is that the Packers could realistically end up with a corner in the second round with Siobhan Revel, Maxwell Hairston, Benjamin Morrison, and Azaria Thomas all sitting here on the backside. There's also a bunch of edges here as well, though. Maybe not a bunch, but Landon Jackson, Jack Sawyer, Tyleek Williams, the defensive tackle, could be an option here. Uman Malin, who I actually like, JT Tuimalau. There's a good amount of guys second round. But that's kind of, man, they just need defensive line help. I mean, I really think that's what it's got to be. I'm in favor of corner. I'd be all about it, but doing absolutely nothing to address probably your number one need in free agency, pending any kind of big move or big trade, I just can't help but feel like that's got to be the top option right now. But I want to go through some of the more recent mock drafts, the last 2, 3, 4 days, whatever. kind of look at where we're at right now. Pro Football Network put out a mock draft today. First off, they got the Titans taking Abdul Carter to start things off, with Cam Ward going to the Browns. Will Johnson is gone by 6. Shamar Stewart, the edge run, starts at 7. Jalen Walker at 8. Shadur falls all the way to 9. They still have the Bears taking a tackle, which is a little surprising. I get it, but I don't know. Michael goes at 11. So by the time 11 rolls around, a lot of these guys are already gone. Kenneth Grant is gone at 16. Jahdae Barron is gone at 17. James Pierce, edge rusher, goes to Atlanta at 20. Mike Green goes one spot in front of us, but he does have us taking Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. I'm guessing most people would be fine with that. Clearly coming in talking about pressure being the biggest need, and I think Derek Harmon is seen as that guy. I do want to kind of reiterate, though, Derek Harmon, although the pressure rate is there, he only had 5 sacks. He's got 9 sacks in his 4 years. So for the, we need to only get super productive people crowd, I don't know that Derek Harmon is the guy that you're going to fall in love with. And even the pressure rate, it was kind of a 1-year thing. He had, when he was with Michigan State, 20 pressures on 232 attempts and 1 sack. 2022, it was 15 pressures on 220 attempts and 3 sacks. His first year at Michigan State, he didn't play much, but didn't have any pressures or sacks. So this is kind of his first year when he went to Oregon, kind of breaking out as a pass rusher. So there would have to be a pretty serious question as to, was that a fluke, or is this guy really good at it? And even then, again, you're talking 5 sacks for an entire season. Now, he had 55 pressures on 346 attempts, and if that's not a fluke, on top of the fact that he's also a decent run defender, then this could be a pretty solid deal. If it was kind of a fluke, then he might just be a bad football player. So, in my mind, I see the upside. I also see a lot of red flags, and is pretty far from a slam dunk in my mind. CBS mock draft again, Abdul Carter followed by Cam Ward. We do have Shadur Sanders going 3, though. Mason Graham again gone by 5. Teteroa has gone by 8. Again, the Bears taking a tackle. Will Johnson gone by 11. And then we got Shamar Stewart going at 12. Calvin Banks going 14. Michael Williams going 15. Even when the edge rush doesn't start mid-top 10, it just goes so fast. Again, you've got picks 12, 14, 15, and 16 with Mike Green going. Walter Nolan goes 17. So just boom, 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 right down the line. Again, at pick 20, we lose Kenneth Grant. Packers end up taking Jahdae Barron, the corner. Again, I'm not super opposed to it, but now we're just, again, looking at nothing so far for the defensive front. Kyle Krabs over at 33rd team. He's got the Giants trading up, taking Cam Ward number 1. Cleveland taking Shadur number 2. Titans then getting Abdul Carter at 3, that makes the most sense. I mean, if we're talking about the Titans looking for Abdul Carter anyways, why wouldn't you trade to 3 and still end up getting him? Because you're almost guaranteed to get that. Tyler Warren going 5 to Jacksonville is interesting. That's pretty early for him. Mason Graham slid to 7, which is about as far as you can see it. Shamar Stewart, the edge rush starts at 8, it looks like. Jahdae Barron gone at 9. Gienti goes to the Bears. That one I think is probably correct. Kenneth Grant gone at 11. We've got Will Johnson made it to 13 in this mock. Still quite a bit of edge rushers. We're all the way down to 16. Michael Williams goes to 16. Mike Green at 17. Eman Wari, the safety, at 18. Jalen Walker makes it to 19, which I think is fair. I wonder if there's going to be some questions about that. Omarion Hampton goes 21. That would be great because it kind of pushes people toward us. Iziro Aku goes 22, which is real early for him. That leaves Teteroa McMillan to the Packers at 23. I told you he's been falling in a couple mocks. Now, it's not common, but again, in this mock environment where there's just nothing that's known, and there's a lot of really crazy stuff, but none of it is stupid. I think all of this could make sense. As far as Tyler Warren, 5 is pretty early, but I think that could absolutely happen. What else? I mean, nothing else is super. Jahdae Barron could absolutely go 9. It's just a question of, do you think he can actually play on the boundary and play at a high level? Kenneth Grant at 11 wouldn't be surprising at all. Will Johnson going to 13, I think makes sense. I don't know how far he could fall, but, that's not that crazy. Jihad Campbell at 15 to the Falcons absolutely could happen. And then again, you got a couple that are outlandish or outside of the norm, like Nick Emanwari, the safety out of South Carolina, going to Seattle. But with his combine, it wouldn't be that surprising to have a team just go all in on the guy, especially when you're almost to 20 in the first round. And then the only other kind of a couple of surprising ones, Omari and Hampton, but I mean, that's a late first round pick. It wouldn't be that crazy. And then Iziro Waku, the edge rusher, I know he's seen as more of an early second than a late first, but that would not be that surprising either. And, honestly, I think when I did the mock, I tried to have a team take Tetairoa McMillan just because I felt weird because he kept falling, but it just made sense. There were just not a lot of teams that really needed him as much as other things. You got teams that desperately need edge rushers with edge rushers just sitting right there. Now, do I think it's going to happen? Not really, but I think it could. And obviously would be all in on that. Yes, we need defensive line help, but, I mean, this is a slam dunk for a need for the Packers. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel did a mock. Cam Ward followed by, for crying out loud, these stupid pop-ups for ad. Like, how much ad money are you actually getting from me? You want your 4 cents? I'm so sick of doing this crap. Pause on the site. Yeah, pause. Let them get their 1/16th of 1 penny for my read-through here. And I'll just sit here and close ads all day long as they keep popping up. Cam Ward going 1, Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. It's a little bit different, but more or less the same. The one thing that I've seen consistently that I haven't brought up is Armand Membo. That dude is lock top 10 at this point. I mean, he's been top 5 in several of these mocks. I mean, that's assuming they're correct, but I mean, he was kind of like a teens kind of a guy, and I think every one of these mocks so far has had him top 10, if not top 5. Also, Shamar Stewart, which I think I had said this was going to happen, but Shamar Stewart being the top pass rusher off the board, I think makes absolute sense. But here he is going at 6 again. Shadur falls to 7, Michael Williams 8, Jalen Walker 9. So there's, 4 edge rushers in the top 10, including the top guy, which I don't usually include. McMillan falls to 12. Mason Graham falling to 13. So there you go. There's that slide. Will Johnson at 14. Matthew Golden goes 15. He's been consistently way up there, too. That's another guy. Golden was seen as at around 30. Pretty much all these mocks have had him go prior to 20. Kenneth Grant goes 16. Mike Green 17. James Pierce 19. Jahdae Barron 21. Walter Nolan 22. Packers take Siobhan Revel, cornerback, at 23. Again, not absolutely my favorite, but all the top guys end up going. Now, could we absolutely have gone with Iziro Waku or one of those guys, Nick Scorton, who I've said I like, clearly could have done that. But, you get to a point where it's just hard to get that group to fall to the Packers. Mock draft by The Athletic. Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter is how it starts off. Membo goes 5 again. Mason Graham 6, Tet McMillan 7, Shamar Stewart inside the top 10. Then Jalen Walker, Michael Williams go 11, 12. Will Johnson falls to 15. I mean, again, he keeps getting in striking range. You get to 15, Packers could make a move for a guy like Will Johnson. Again, I don't know if they would, but it's something to consider. They even got here via The Athletic. He flashes moments of greatness on his sophomore tape, though, and still finished his college career as the best Michigan corner since Charles Woodson. I mean, maybe they don't have a lot of good corners, but that's some serious praise there. Iziro Waku goes 19, so that's another guy that's pretty consistently been higher than what the consensus is saying. Maybe that's moving a little bit slower. Gray Zabel goes 22. Haven't seen that a ton. Packers take Matthew Golden, wide receiver. I think there were some edges that fell. Shadur Sanders at 28. Yeah, Mike Green goes 29. They actually have a round 2, which we might as well explore. But there were a couple of guys that slid past the Packers. It seems like wide receiver is still seen as maybe a little bit of a bigger need. I don't know. I still think it's... Oh, here we go. At 54, the Packers take James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. Well, yeah, if that happens, then sure. That's one way to make it all come together just nicely. And who knows? Maybe he could slide into the second round, and maybe that could happen. But yeah, I would be pretty happy with that situation if it happened. As of right now, I don't really see that as being a likely scenario with James Pierce making it. And if he does, then it becomes, okay, why did he fall? It's obviously not great. PFF did a mock draft. They got Cam Ward to the Giants at 1, Shadur Sanders, Abdul Carter to Tennessee, so that's kind of a common thing that I think makes a lot of sense. Genty's gone at 6, Graham at 7, Walker 8, Ted McMillan 9, Shamar Stewart to the Bears is interesting. Not a terrible thing, and I like when people do things that do make sense, but also nobody's doing it. Membo goes 11, so that's the first one outside of the top 10 I've seen. Michael Williams at 12. We've got Will Johnson at 15. Again, just if he gets around there or further, it's worth talking about. Kenneth Grant makes it to 16. That's absolutely within striking distance to move up. James Pierce, 17. Walter Nolan, 21. Again, they've got Jahdae Barron going to the Packers. That's with Derek Harmon still available. Who else is? And Mike Green still available, which I wouldn't be super opposed to. I don't know. I'm torn on Mike Green. He's one of those guys that I watch him play, and it's like, I just can't get into it. And then you watch that one play where he just like one arm throws an Ohio State player like he didn't exist. And it's like, okay, this guy's got some freaking Superman DNA going on here or something that maybe you don't see it every time, but the fact that you can see that it's in there kind of makes you wonder about some stuff. Walter Football, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Abdul Carter is how things start off. Will Johnson and Mason Graham go 6 and 7, so we'll just forget that little pipe dream. Michael Williams is gone at 8, and then Kenneth Grant goes to the Bears, another unusual one. Membo, 11, again to the 49ers. Who else do we care about? Shamar Stewart makes it to 15, would again, roughly put him in striking distance, in my opinion. Jalen Walker, 16. Walter Nolan gone at 17. Tetaroa makes it to 18. Again, I'd be very tempted to start putting in some phone calls. Derek Harmon goes at 21. Benjamin Morrison goes 22. And then Jordan Birch to the Packers, defensive end / defensive tackle out of Oregon. Says Packers didn't have very good pass rush. They'll be looking to strengthen their defensive line. Jordan Birch has immense potential as an athletic player with a big frame, but hasn't been consistent. That would be kind of a Packers thing to do. He's currently consensus 78 right now, so that would check out for sure. Got 2 more here. The Draft Network did a mock. They've got, again, Giants, Cam Ward, followed by Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Shadur makes it to 5 to Pittsburgh. Mason Graham is gone at 6. Membo is gone at 7. Shamar at 8. He put Membo twice on here. It's not great to be the Draft Network and not even realize you took him 2 picks ago. So somebody's going to fall to the Packers that should be gone. Kenneth Grant goes 10. Again to the Bears. We're getting kind of interesting there. Will Johnson, 11. The Packers trade up to 13 to get Jalen Walker. Interesting. They have us trading pick 23, a second-round pick, and a 2026 second to draft Jalen Walker. Plenty of debate about whether Walker is an off-ball linebacker or an edge defender, but Green Bay's Jeff Hafley can deploy him exactly as Georgia did. The role maximizes what Walker does best, disrupt, his ability to fit the run, drop into coverage, and do you even understand what our defense is? It's not great look for the Draft Network, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, that's Jeff Hafley, all right. Dropping edge rushers into coverage is his MO. For sure. Good old 3-4 Jeff Hafley, And then Pro Football Network did a 7-round mock draft. We're not going to go through everything here, but Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Membo goes 4, Graham at 5, Abdul Carter makes it to 6, Shamar at 8, Tetaroa McMillan 9, Golden goes at 12, which is really early for him. Let's see. Derek Harmon is gone at 17. Michael Williams goes 19. Let's see. Will Johnson to 22. I'd be devastated if he went one spot before us. And then Iziro Waku goes 23 to the Packers. I don't dislike that. He obviously fell to us, which is great. Gray Zabel ends up going to Minnesota. A lot of Packer fans would be pissed about that. That one spot later is somebody that they wanted. Jalen Walker makes it all the way to 27 with Walter Nolan 28. So one of the bad things about these kinds of things is so many guys fell. Tyleik Williams at 30. James Pierce at 32, Mike Green at 33. So this is a mock that says these guys are not going to go as early as people think, and I wouldn't be super surprised. I don't know if all of them fall, like Kenneth Grant at 40, but some of these guys I think have some serious questions, and one or two are probably going to fall. Since it's our last one, so there you go. Green Bay 54, Benjamin Morrison, as these guys continue to fall. Again, not a huge Benjamin Morrison fan, but catching him on the backside maybe could end up being a good play. At 87, they take Barrett Carter, linebacker out of Clemson. Kind of has me shrugging a little bit just because not a massive need. Did we skip some here, or did we just lose all our picks in a trade or something? 160, Dylan Sampson, a running back. What are you guys doing to me here? Josh Gray, offensive lineman. B.J. Adams, cornerback out of UCF. Jack Nelson, tackle out of Wisconsin. And that is that mock. I mean, I who knows how these things are going to turn out, but if you go through free agency, don't really get anybody, and then go through the draft and end up with, linebackers and running backs, it's like, yikes. I'm not going to be the happiest person. But, all right, there we go. Maybe tomorrow we'll work on a little mocky of our own or something. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.